Good morning, everyone. Good morning, guys, and welcome to this amazing session brought to you by Sriram IAS on Unacademy UPSC Articulate channel. This is our effort towards Mission Mains 2023. Now, we have been having these sessions every single weekend. Me and Anshum sir, we are bringing to you from both ends important and relevant topics for your mains preparation. Now, in this session, we are going to take our efforts forward and we will be discussing important and relevant topics with respect to your mains preparation. Make sure that you follow these sessions thoroughly. Now, before I go on and discuss the topic of eco-sensitive zones, I want to discuss the fact that you should be following these sessions thoroughly, and not just these sessions. There are amazing and wonderful classes and sessions happening on Unacademy platform that have been brought to you by Sriram's IS. Do not miss them. All right. This effort towards Mission Mains 2023 is to make sure that every single aspect of current affairs from the last 1 year, which is relevant for your mains answer writing, which is relevant for your mains preparation, is made sure that it reaches you guys in the right form, in the right manner. All right. On that note, on that thought, let's begin with our session. Before I begin, I request you all to make sure that you like this session and share it with other people who are preparing for mains this year and who are preparing for next year's examination as well. Because this particular course or this particular set of session series, ये सिर्फ आपके लिए नहीं है, ये सब लोगों के लिए है, ये उन सब के लिए है जो कि तैयारी कर रहे हैं यूपीएससी UPSC Civil Services examination. It has been like this. It has been always so analytical, जहां पर आपको मेंस ओरिएंटेड प्रिपरेशन की जरूरत पड़ती. All right? चलिए. I hope I'm audible and visible to everyone. If I am audible and visible, please let me know in the chat section. If I'm audible and visible, please let me know in the chat section, guys. Wonderful. Now, wonderful. Now, as far as the topic is concerned, eco-sensitive zones. Now, eco-sensitive zones have been in news not just this year, but they have been in news for a very long time. And recently, what has happened is Supreme Court has directed that every single protected forest, national park, wildlife sanctuary in India, they should have a mandatory eco-sensitive zone, at least 1 kilometer starting from their demarcated boundaries. So 1 kilometer away from the demarcated boundary, this is the basic premise that the Honorable Supreme Court has mentioned. Now, this 1 kilometer number is relevant for your prelims examination because this is not just a random number. It basically creates a buffer zone between the eco-sensitive area and areas where human activities and human engagements are allowed. So, eco-sensitive zones have been notified in India since its beginning by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. I would generally recommend for every single individual who's preparing, बेटर है कि मिनिस्ट्री की ना शॉर्ट फॉर्म्स ऐसे याद करना शुरू कर दो, बिकॉज इट बिकम्स वेरी इजियर एंड वेरी ल्यूक्रेटिव टू द आई। पिक्टोग्राफिक मेमोरी अगर किसी बच्चे की है तो वो इस तरीके से कई सारे फैक्ट्स और कई सारी हिस्ट्रीज को बहुत इजीली याद रख सकता है। नाउ क्रिएट सम काइंड ऑफ अ शॉक एब्जॉर्बर, बेसिकली एक बफर जोन क्रिएट कर देगा सो दैट यू कैन हेल्प regulate and manage human activities around the eco-sensitive area. Further, once you create this buffer, this will reduce the developmental pressures on the wildlife sanctuary and the national park. So आप एक core area design करके, core area define करके, you can stick to that portion and further आप बाकी सब जगहों पर developmental activities take up कर सकते हैं। They also have asked for a transition zone. They can act like a transition zone. They can act like a transition zone. Transition zone is nothing but buffer area which allows for number one, wildlife authorities to maintain and manage the wildlife protected areas, and also it is a transition zone for the people as well, so that they know that beyond this point is core areas, beyond this point there is going to be limited activities or no activities at all. Now there will be they will be transitioning from the lesser protected areas towards higher protected areas. Now all the identified areas around the protected areas, which the Honorable Supreme Court has asked to have been declared eco-sensitive zones, at least 1 kilometer inside the transition zone or 1 kilometer inside the boundaries, particularly, and the wildlife corridors, for example, the elephant corridors, right? So these are basically corridors are basically those transition zones through which wildlife travels. They should be declared ecologically fragile. Now, what it would do if you follow the guidelines from the Honorable Supreme Court, it will have a multi-pronged impact. If it is followed, number one, it will allow for a streamlined policy towards environmental clearance. Because right now, the kind of policy that we are following, it is based on a very simple process, and that is case to case basis. केस टू केस बेसिस पर हम पॉलिसी को फॉलो कर रहे हैं एंड इन फैक्ट environmental clearances, if they are picked up on a streamlined policy manner, it would also have a positive impact on investments, positive impact on investments in developmental projects, because people will not be worried. Companies, the investors, they will not be worried about environmental clearances. They would know, because it is a streamlined policy, it is more easier to manage. Eco-sensitive zones can go up to 10 kilometers around the protected areas. Now, basically, what you would have, according to this picture that is being depicted now, you would have boundaries, then you will have the transition zone. So, well within the transition zone, you will have the protected area, or rather the eco-sensitive zone, and this will be the protected area. Now, this eco-sensitive zone is going to act like a transition from less protected area towards high protected area. In cases where you have sensitive corridors, which is very difficult to manage, connectivity and ecologically important patches where it is very crucial to protect the landscape, to protect the wildlife, which can even go beyond 10 kilometers of width. This eco-sensitive zone can even go beyond this 10 kilometers number. but it is only for sensitive corridors. Sensitive corridors are very peculiar areas. It's not like a straight conduit between two different protected areas. It is more or less like a path which any wild animal would follow, and because one wild animal follows, the pack, the herd actually follows that wild animal. So based on that, it is very difficult to define what corridors and what patches of corridors are relevant. Now, here is the catch. It is supposed to be a task of certain committees of experts to define the ecologically important patches, and based on that, you can go beyond the 10 kilometers number and you should define the eco-sensitive zones even for the corridors. Eco-sensitive zones may not be uniform all around, but there will have to be certain uniformity with respect to policy. Here it is not about, in this particular topic, it is not about how uniformly you are defining the eco-sensitive zone. It is about the policy to define eco-sensitive zone, the thought of the government to define the eco-sensitive zone. Now, if you clearly mention it in the policy with respect to environmental impact assessment, with respect to eco-sensitive zones, for example, and with respect to the environmental clearances for various projects for developmental activities, with respect to highways being constructed, with respect to bridges, with respect to any developmental activity, maybe setting up some industries, maybe setting up some procurement plants and distribution plants or food innovation hubs, so on and so forth. We have discussed food innovation hubs in our last class. अगर आपको पिछली क्लास याद हो तो उसमें हमने डिस्कस किया था. Now, you will also have to define the prohibited activities, and the Honorable Supreme Court has basically, based on certain ideas and agendas which have been put forth as arguments in the case, they have mentioned that there are certain activities like the industries which are causing pollution, commercial mining, for example, sawmills, for example. Sawmills are basically RA बोलते हैं उसको हिंदी में, where the wood is cut down into smaller pieces and they are basically created into the form that is easily usable in your commercial projects or household activities and household construction projects. Now, beyond that, if you are creating a major hydroelectric power plant, commercial use of wood, and you are utilizing that zone for that purpose, for tourism activities, for discharge of effluents, which is one of the most dangerous activities, because if you are cutting down a tree, you are cutting down the end product of an ecosystem, which is certainly going to impact. Listen very carefully what I'm trying to say here. If you cut down one single tree, every single tree that is cut down, every environmentalist has some form of emotional connect with that tree because of it being cut down. That is fine. It is a very good thing. Problem arises when we have a blind eye towards all the resource material that this tree requires to grow. We think that afforestation will be the answer. The afforestation process or the notion of having afforestation as a way out for more deforestation is not a very conducive way to think about sustainability, because when you think about sustainability requires all the precursors and all the resources that ensure the resources that we are utilizing right now should also be sustained. It is supposedly forward looking and backward looking, तो वो दोनों तरफ से उसको मेंटेन मैनेज करके चलना पड़ता है. One thing. Further, you have to have certain regulated activities, certain prohibited activities. Prohibited activities का आपको example दिया discharge of effluents, because if you are discharging effluents in the streams which are helping thrive this set of forest land, then certainly the trees, the plantations, they will have a negative impact. वहां पर आपकी toxicity levels या bioaccumulation होना शुरू हो जाएगा. I hope you remember this concept of bioaccumulation, right? Now, Second, now, what are the regulated activities? Of course, felling of trees. We need wood for the बढ़ रहा है इंडिया ग्रो कर रहा है इंडिया construction activities are the basic premise and there you would need wood for construction purposes so felling of trees and establishing hotels resorts commercial activities commercial use of natural water tourism related activities which are supposedly hotels and resorts which can be regulated now these can be regulated drastic change of agriculture system for example they should be regulated erection of electrical cables that should be regulated, which will have a very limited impact. Adoption of heavy technologies, pesticides, etc., with respect to agriculture, widening of roads, all of this is a possibility and can be picked up. Then, what can be permitted activities? Agriculture, which is ongoing, horticulture practices, rainwater harvesting, organic farming, which will have maybe to a certain extent a positive impact depending upon the kind of definition that you are having for organic farming. If you remember, I have conducted an entire session on organic farming. If you remember that, then certainly you would know further. The impact or the relevance of sensitive zones, the significance of eco-sensitive zones is huge. For example, they help you in situ conservation, they help you deal with the conservation of endangered species in their natural habitat because you do not allow them to be picked up, cherry picked, and saved or conserved in a separate environment. They are saved and conserved in their in situ environment. For example, the best example that we have is the example of lions, tigers, and one-horned rhinoceros. So, one-horned rhinos of Kaziranga National Park, Assam, they are one of the best examples. Good morning, Pooja ji. Now, they are the best examples in this matter. Now, you can minimize forest depletion. Man-animal conflict can also be regulated because once you declare it to be eco-sensitive zone, what happens is that there is a change in the notional aspects. Many aware and learned and educated people, they would stop doing illicit activities and they would move away or refrain away from that particular area. Further, the protected areas can form as the basis and it can serve the purpose of protecting the core areas based on the core and buffer model of management. So it's not based on hub and spokes model, it's based on the core and buffer model of management. ये याद रखिएगा, use this phrase in your answers and you will score better. If you remember in our last class, I had talked about certain questions and I had given you certain questions after every single topic. I would do the same in this class as well. So stay tuned and watch this session till the end. Now, as far as the significance of the judgment is concerned, it would lead to more sustainable development and it can streamline public policy. I have told you how you can perceive this particular topic and how you should be talking about with respect to in this judgment and with respect to eco-sensitive zones. What is the impact streamlining of policy will have on developmental activity? वो सब चीजें हमने discuss की. Now, further, it will also help you protect the tribal rights. Why? Because this zone, this eco-sensitive zone, will help them sustain their own livelihoods, their minor forest produce access rights, also their rights to access the wildlife and areas of forest. Why? Because when human activities are allowed, their rights are infringed to a major extent because commercial activities take place and those commercial activities limit and undermine their rights as individuals. Further, their exploitation happens. So, for that reason, tribal rights have to be protected and they can be protected through this policy suggestion which has come from the Honorable Supreme. Now, let's link it to a certain extent with respect to judicial activism, because we have been covering various optional subjects on Unacademy platform, including the optional subject of public administration, which I am taking. For example, we have been discussing the concepts in polity, in PSIR, for example, with respect to judicial activism. Now, judicial activism is basically a beyond the scope and beyond the horizon of the powers of any state, but state organ, particularly judiciary, where judiciary tries to overreach or overdo what it is supposed to do. It is crossing the limits that have been set by the honorable Supreme Court or the high courts or the lower courts. If courts and judiciary particularly, they overreach or they extend their horizon and go beyond the limits set out by the separation of powers idea and agenda set out in our Indian Constitution. That is where the judicial overreach happens. Hello, Renuji. Welcome to the class. Further, okay, one more thing. When it comes to judicial overreach, or when it comes to the Honorable Supreme Court moving towards suggesting policy initiatives, that is where it's not just about judicial overreach, it is also about various phases of India's constitutional evolution, phases of constitutional. I have created an entire session series, about 10 sessions on Unacademy platform. Make sure that you go and watch those sessions as well whenever you find time. Your enthusiasm, your energy, and your understanding towards polity will go higher. Now, as far as the topic is concerned, let me give you a very specific question for mains related topic of eco-sensitive zone. So the question of the day, or question for the topic, can be like this. I hope you note it down. इसको लिख लीजिएगा that have some stockpile of questions, relevant questions. This series plus this will really help you. Now, can be as simple as this. The relevance and, hello Kush, how are you? Significance of develop uh, of this stop in, not full stop, rather, in light of recent Supreme Court observations or judgment, for example. Words, or let's just say 200 words only. 100 words, 3 mark, है ना? इस तरीके से इसको टेकअप कर लो. चलो. Now, make sure that you write down the answers. Make sure that you have them peer analyzed, or you can discuss it with our faculties at Sriram's IAS and Sriram's IAS faculties. They are accessible through the Unacademy platform. Then you should go and discuss these answers and these questions with every single individual relevant to the topic, of course. And you can follow us on Unacademy platform. One more thing that you should be doing, One more thing that everybody should be doing, they should be going through one particular aspect, that is the 25% discount that Sriram Guys is offering for now on Unacademy platform for all the courses that we are offering with respect to ES, with respect to optional subjects. Now, as far as the optional subjects are concerned, one thing that you should know, you are being offered geography optional, and you are also being offered foundation courses, foundation batches for your UPSC Civil Services examination preparation. One thing that you should remember is the fact that this foundation batch 2024 actually covers 100% portion of the syllabus, and it is relevant for your complete preparation, prelims, mains, and interviews. Every single area of the exam is being covered by top educators in the structured manner that you are supposed to deliver. And further, you also have anthropology optional. You also have, for example, various all other courses that are mentioned here. Now, these courses that are mentioned, they are already live and running. Make sure that you go and check them out. Foundation batch, which has been launched, it has recently been launched on 13th of July. If you see this, you should remember two things. One, SRIRAMS, that is the referral code. You can get a 25% discount. Second thing is the phone number that is hidden right behind me, and that is 8585858585. Remember this phone number, and also follow all the educators of Sriram's IAS on Unacademy platform. All right. Then, now let's get back to our presentation. Now, as far as challenges are concerned with respect to maintaining and regulating activities with respect to eco-sensitive zones, developmental activities like construction of dams, roads, urban and rural infrastructure in eco-sensitive zones has created interference with the environment and has negatively impacted the environment and caused the imbalance in the environment. Then there are blatant violations of eco-sensitive zone regulations, and there have been increasing demand for ecotourism. Land around parks and sanctuaries, they have also been cleared through deforestation, displacement of local people, etc., just to cater to ecotourism. So tourism as such is not exactly a very sustainable or a very conducive or a very positive activity as such. The problem lies with the fact that how the land is being prepared for ecotourism. So it can be, what it needs is a change in approach towards tourism and tourism related activities. You can also promote, you know, you can also promote hiking. You can also promote, say, camping and such activities. Ecotourism should not be sine qua non to luxury. When it becomes sine qua non to luxury, it is then that it creates problems. Further, failing to recognize the rights of forest communities is basically an entire, it would be the murder of the constitution to that extent, because the constitution that has been created, it has been created with the people, and the people involves every single individual within the bounds of this country, every single individual, particularly those who were overtly and explicitly exploited by the colonial rule, and of course before that as well. These individuals, they have faced the wrath of tyranny of all the despotic rulers and individual colonialists who have come to India. These individuals were exploited. Their rights were in fact not recognized for a very long time, and now through the Forest Rights Act and otherwise, when these communities are getting back their rights, that is the time where you need to protect them from all the pseudo developmental activities that will have negative impact on their politico social existence. It's not a socio political existence but a politico social existence. Why do I say so? We will discuss that when the topic comes. As far as the impact of climate change on biodiversity is concerned, it is not just about maintaining what is. It is also to stop, adapt, and mitigate what is happening to what is. राइट, जो है हमारे पास उसको सिर्फ उसी को मेंटेन नहीं करना है, उसको संजो कर भी रखना है, उसको मैनेज, उसको रेगुलेट भी करना है, सो दैट देयर आर एडेप्टेशन एंड मिटिगेशन स्ट्रेटजीज टुवर्ड्स क्लाइमेट चेंज. Then tourism is also considered to be related to pollution. It is creating pressure on eco-sensitive zones. So we need to develop new sites and new gateways. That is what the government has to do over a period of time. Tourists, they leave behind a lot of garbage, plastic bags, bottles. They have caused environmental degradation. Now, this is something that we as individuals have to realize the kind of people that we are. Well, as a commune, I'm talking about. The kind of people that we are is being reflected by the footprint, the human or homo footprint that we leave behind every single place that we have visited. जहां जहां हम जाते हैं उस जगह पर हमारे जाने के बाद हमें, for example, if you remove humans and then you look at the site, if you look at it and this seems disgusting, I wish I could share a couple of pictures with you guys. All that has happened because of human interventions, all that has happened because also one, I, I remind myself of this, some advertisement or rather some monogrammic, there was a video that was created by some individual, very creative video, where a cartoonist impression of human impact on the environment is being depicted. तो वो बहुत जबरदस्त वीडियो मुझे लगी थी. I wish, if I find that video, I would definitely share it with you. Definitely. In the chat section or in the comment section, जैसे भी अगर मुझे मिला, तो I would share it with you guys. I am talking about sharing things with you guys. Make sure that you guys share it with others. All right? Chalo, let's proceed further. You just give me a couple of seconds. Couple of seconds. Please. Give me a couple of seconds. We'll continue. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the Telegram link of the channel that Sriram IAS has on Telegram. Okay, the official channel. that you get access to all kinds of information with respect to all the sessions that Sriram Das brings to you guys on Unacademy platform and on this other Unacademy channels, Unacademy Articulate YouTube channel, for example. I've shared the link. Make sure that you follow that as well. All right. Now let's proceed further. One second. Out. Now everything will get sorted. What I was hoping for. Thank you to the team. Now, as far as challenges are concerned, हमने challenges discuss किए हैं. See, the center needs to come up with a plan to incentivize farmers to sticking to green practices in eco-sensitive zones. They have to have communities living around the protected areas to promote conservation practices of eco-sensitive zones. There needs to be rethinking of environmental impact policies. I've already discussed in the beginning of the entire topic how you should proceed with this particular aspect of policy analysis. Further, let's talk about the India's burning issue of sustainability of basically stubble burning. So stubble burning ka issue, it has been relevant for a recent number of years, and it has been a very strong premise of political discourse as well in the past. Now we are going to be discussing this topic. Let's try to keep it subtle. Let's not make it a very political issue. Now, see, as far as this topic or this concept of stubble burning is concerned, it is related to a major extent related to the sciences of environment, where we discuss. In fact, when I was pursuing my engineering days, we were used to discuss and we used to study a subject called environmental engineering. There, we used to study the concept of plume behavior. The concept of plume behavior. Plume is basically nothing but have this chimney, have this smoke coming out. This is basically plume. Entire thing which is coming out of chimney is the plume. Now, this plume is actually the entire smoke, the soot particles, everything that is being acting as an effluent in air. Now, what we have come to realize is that plume behavior is different for cold areas, for hot areas, for warm areas, and it is different for not just cold, warm, hot areas. is also different. It acts differently when it comes to the height of the chimney. It depends on various factors, including the height of chimney. Just give me a second. Let me refresh because just a second. Now, I hope I'm audible now. Now, what I have explained is I have to repeat this. I'm going to be quoting Liam Neeson from the A Team, and he used to say that no matter how random things might appear, there is always a plan. See, randomness and entropy, they will always increase. This is the system that we are in. It is possible in environment, it is possible in sciences, it is possible in thermodynamics, in every single domain of your understanding of human understanding. Entropy will always increase. There will never be a case where you say that ये कर लिया तो आगे life आसान को कर डाला तो लाइफ झिंगा लाला इट नेवर हैपेंस बिकॉज आफ्टर 10th जैसे पेरेंट्स बोलते हैं बेटा 10th कर ले अभी मेहनत कर ले 10th में पास कर ले फिर आसान है +2 पास कर ले डिग्री कर ले यूपीएससी कर ले लाइफ आसान है लाइफ is always going to be complex. It is always going to be like this, and this is something which will help you in ethics. It will also help you in GS3. It will also help you in understanding various aspects of plume behavior as well. Now, when you consider plume behavior, what happens is that plume also wants to be vibrant, increase its entropy. वो कहाँ होता है जहां पर हीट ज्यादा होती है, जहां पर एयर का टेम्परेचर ज्यादा होता है, वेयर एयर टेम्परेचर इज हायर, the temperature of air is high. At that point, you have higher randomness for the plume. And that is where the plume wants to go. And this is the reason why the plume wants to move away from the place where it has been created. It is not just because of the fact कि भाई chimney height कम है तो वो आसपास के areas. No, 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 no. There is a pressure difference concept. It is based on that. Now, if you have areas which are more heated up, the urban areas particularly, ये urban areas में ज़्यादा इसीलिए होता है because urban areas get heated up quite often and they are sustaining that heat for a very long time. That is the concept of urban heat islands, if you remember, urban heat islands. That concept of urban heat islands is going to have relevance here as well. Because of that heat, the air becomes rarer and that air basically rises up, creating a pressure difference at the lower level. नीचे के लेवल पर pressure difference हो जाता है. You have low pressure in lower areas and high pressure at much higher planetary winds के concept में higher areas में atmosphere के you will have higher pressure. So this low pressure zone is like a very lucrative site for the plume and the plume starts to move towards these areas. This is why you have, because of stubble burning, because of various other activities, the entire pollution, the entire smog moving towards urban areas. And one big conglomeration of urban areas is our national capital territory of Delhi. And that is why you have more problems in Delhi. But it's not just Delhi, if you ask me. The places that where I have been, I see this plume acting just likewise, depending upon the size and depending upon the pressure difference at it that the place offers. उतना plume वहां पर आ जाता है, बाकी सारा इधर उधर चला जाता है. Now, it is not a state specific problem and it should not be a state specific problem. It should not be entangled in the issues of federalism. It should rather be taken care of much more scientifically. Stubble burning is a method of removing paddy crop residues from the field just to make sure that the field is clear very quickly. So wheat in the last week of September to November. Now this as a process is basically setting fire to the straw stubble left over after the harvesting of grains like paddy, like wheat, for example. And based on this, this is basically a combined harvesting method where you leave the crop residue behind after burning and you feel and you presume that it would add to the fertility of the soil. Now, the process of burning farm residue is a major cause of air pollution in various parts, particularly in those zones of time, in those time periods where you are having a transition from one crop to another. This reduces the air quality. And also, if you have to look at it, you will have to look at it from this perspective that I'm talking about. इस बारे में थोड़ा सा इस तरीके से भी सोचिएगा, इस तरीके से. We talk about sustainability problems and issues with respect to the dual crop system that we have followed ever since the first green revolution. Now, this dual crop system requires a certain practices. It's not just about the resources and the sources that we use, for example, fertilizers, for example, pesticides. It's not just about that. It is more than that, because of the entire set of activities that are happening because of paddy, because of wheat, and the cyclical processes that are involved in it. उसकी वजह से सिर्फ और सिर्फ soil degradation नहीं हो रहा है, it is also air pollution, it is also water pollution. So all the resource materials that you have for agriculture, the air, the water, the soil, these are the resource materials, right? इसके अलावा तो कोई और resource नहीं है. Yes, you have human resources, but the natural resources that you require for a sustainable agriculture, they all are being impacted because of this dual system that we follow after first green revolution. And that is what you need to understand. So that this stubble burning is not just an issue with respect to a one particular time. It is also related with the activities that we take up in an unsustainable manner with respect to agriculture. एग्रीकल्चर के अंदर इस तरीके की अनसस्टेनेबल एक्टिविटीज को कैसे केटर करना है, किस तरीके से यू हैव टू मूव टुवर्ड्स मोर सस्टेनेबल यूसेजेस, दैट इज व्हाट वी हैव टू रियलाइज. Along with the vehicular emission that is basically already affecting the air quality index in the NCT area, in the NCR region as well. It is going to add the stubble burning by farmers of Haryana, Western UP and Punjab. If you notice, these are the key areas of first green. Yeah, this is a major cause of pollution in this period particular. और जब तक बारिशें नहीं आती हैं, air धुलती नहीं है. Air does not get washed away of all the smoke and smog particular. Now, this practice is mainly of Punjab, of Haryana and Western UP, particularly while clearing Rabi crops, clearing the fields for Rabi crop sowing. Now, why does this problem occur? Crop duopoly, something that I have already explained, very relevant. 1960s, link it with Green Revolution. Interlinking in every single topic is very important, guys. Very important. Because UPSC is there to, and they're just there to check how multi-pronged, in what multi-pronged manner, to what extent your horizon can exist for your knowledge, for your wisdom, to what extent or to what scope or to what dimension you can actually push yourself, to push your wisdom to that point. तो इस वजह से जिस तरीके से मैंने पॉइंट फॉर्म में किया है, इसी तरीके से आप पॉइंट फॉर्म में अपने आंसर्स में लिखेंगे, तो इट विल रियली बेनिफिट यू. व्हाई डू आई से सो? बिकॉज when it comes to paragraphs, it is very difficult to create a chain of thought. It is only with a very artistic articulation that you can do that. Just like the name of the channel that we are sitting around, that is the Unacademy UPSC Articulate channel. Now, so basically, what you'll have to do is start practicing writing down answer in the point form. Now, I, for one, I've been helping out students for about 12 odd years now. It's about 12 years. Within a week, I would be celebrating my anniversary. Now, for 12 odd years, I've been focusing on answer writing. And I would give you a question after this topic as well. Make sure that you watch every single topic till the end, because मैंने पिछले टॉपिक के अंदर भी एक क्वेश्चन दिया है, इस टॉपिक के अंदर भी क्वेश्चन दे आपकी प्रैक्टिस के लिए. आप नोट डाउन कर लीजिए, उसको यूज कीजिए. नाउ when it comes to UPSC answer writing, make sure that you start practicing with writing points. जब आप पॉइंट्स लिखते हैं तो उससे बेनिफिट ये होता है कि आपका जो थॉट प्रोसेस है वो स्ट्रीमलाइन हो जाता है. It gets streamlined in such a manner that it helps you in a lot many that you cannot even imagine. The best way, the best. All right. Chalo. Now, let's come to crop duopoly, the fact that we have already discussed. Then further introduction of subsidies, which is again, I told you, all the unsustainable practices that are associated with the policy of green revolution, with the policy of crop duopoly, that has had and will have a negative impact on the environment. We are not degrading the existing environment. That is something that is happening as an outcome. But we are degrading the resources for future environment. That is a major cause of concern. Your soil, water, air, which is supposed to give you a basic premise, which is supposed to deliver a lot of aspects for the future. Now, where that has an impact, where that has a problematic exist, this is where we are basically getting a very difficult situation for the future. The government policy towards, because of growing water crisis, Punjab and Haryana governments, they have introduced laws around water conservation. We need to make sure and encourage farmers to look to monsoon rather than groundwater to irrigate their crops. This is basically one example of policy that can be utilized as a basic premise to change the way the farmers are behaving. One more thing that can happen is that we can have government interventions to reduce crop residue burning. So, banning of crop residue burning under the Air Act of 1981 and read with the Code of Criminal Procedure 1973 and various appropriate acts. That will have a negative impact on the behavior of the farmer because it will be a fight of farmers' right to grow crops as an economic right and also an economic eco-social right, social and economic rights. But it will also have a negative political impact. It will not be well perceived politically because it reduces the capabilities and reduces the abilities of farmers to take up farming activities in a very independent manner. I would suggest and recommend an alternative to this. Now, there was a time when I used to not be a lawyer. I was an aspiring lawyer, and that point of time, I still am, huh? I was a chemical engineer. And in chemical engineering, particularly in my master's of chemical engineering, I had perceived a thought based on this particular agenda only. If you procure the stubble, store it, dry it, cut it, and then apply it, where do you think it would be utilized? In multiple ways. Number one, construction. In construction, it has been seen that if you add the stubble in your roof, for example, number one, its ability to withstand water logging increases. Number two, its strength increases many folds. Number three, it allows to keep the temperatures inside because it acts like an insulation material. The temperatures inside that roof or below that roof, they are also managed. वो थोड़ा सा घर को ठंडा रखती है दीवारों में स्टबल को ऐड कीजिए. In fact, not just stubble, any crop residue, not just crop residue, any animal residue, particularly, say, for example, cow dung. Now, many people would make fun of it, but actually, it has been seen, and this is proven scientifically, that if you add cow dung slurry in your slurry of concrete, it will not just add to the strength of that slurry when it cools down, it will also help you maintain the temperatures cool to a certain extent, at least 2 to 3 degrees Celsius cooler as compared to the previous time. Because now you have increased the composite nature of the material. So whenever you have a composite material, the concrete itself is a composite material. But now when you diversify the composite nature, depending upon, see, इसके अंदर scientific research हो चुका है to what extent that slurry or to what extent this stubble has to be added. ऐसा नहीं है कि stubble में concrete mix करना है. It is like concrete में थोड़ा सा stubble mix करना है. Now, if you are looking at India growing, use this stubble as a tool of enhancing strength. That can be one particular alternative to banning stubble burning. You can create a positive impact. तो जो negative policy है where you are stopping someone from doing something, rather than you allow them to use this route, which is going to also increase the income for the farmers to a much greater extent. Many areas you have seen penalties being imposed. Now, the problem arises with respect to the suggestions that I have made in the recent past as well. This has been in news. In fact, if you would notice, it has been the stubble burning topic and agenda has been in news for about 10 to 11 years now, around that. And what I have perceived is that ever since this agenda came into being, we have been working on this as a scientific community, but no government has actually really, to a greater extent, picked up the process of procurement and to utilize the academia industria linkages. You can have those linkages, you can have research works being conducted on these grounds, but that is a major problem that is not happening at this point of time. One thing that is very easy, ban लगा दो. तो एयर पोल्यूशन कंट्रोल के तहत एयर एक्ट 1981 एंड सिविल क्रिमिनल प्रोसीजर कोड के तहत you have banned these activity of stubble burning. You've also imposed penalties on farmers, village and block level administrative officers. They are being used for the enforcement of this particular kind of ban. Then, of course, the policy that I had asked for was establishing a marketplace for crop residue. That is also one of the processes. It can be used as a fuel in biomass based power plants. तो वो फ्यूल के तौर पर भी यूज हो सकता है stubble. It can be burned and energy can be generated based on that. It can be added as an additive to coal powered plants. कैन बी एडेड. हमारा कोल वैसे भी पीट लिग्नाइट वाली रेंज का है, तो इट इज नॉट ऑफ दैट गुड अ क्वालिटी, है ना. So that all of that can happen. All of that will be positive impact. Now, similarly, it can be utilized for preparation of biofuels, organic fertilizers, paper industry, cardboard making industry. It can be utilized in all these areas. It has commercial significance. Now, this brings me to the question of the topic. As far as the question for this topic is concerned, again, a 200 words question. Guys, please make sure that you note it down. Question would be based on the fact. Let's create a statement. Burning policy is a book example of failure ink academia industry comment. So something like that can be used. Right? I hope I'm audible and visible to everyone. I hope I'm audible and visible to all. raining cats and dogs where I am, and really, at first it looks nice, but then the havoc that it is causing with respect to all the areas being submerged, particularly the urban areas that don't have more much of any seepage areas where I'm not talking about sewerage, I'm talking about seepage areas where this rainwater can actually become a part of groundwater. वो नहीं है. So again, a huge havoc has been caused on urban areas. There is one reason that this happens, and that reason particularly is based on the fact that in urban areas, more often than not, you would find many, know, many environmentalists have talked about it, and you read the great climate derangement. You talk about the urban areas, the problems with respect to urban areas. You would realize this more often than not that urban areas do not have resources. Resources come from rural areas. They come from more often. They do come from your फॉरेस्ट एरियाज एंड फॉरेस्ट एरिया से रूरल एरिया से जो रिसोर्सेज आते हैं उसे हम अनसस्टेनेबली यूज करते हैं तो उसका अनसस्टेनेबल यूसेज जो है वो जिस तरीके से एनवायरमेंटल इम्पैक्ट क्रिएट करता है दैट इज व्हाट वी आर रीपिंग राइट नाउ particularly in the rainy season, particularly in the summer season. We have ACs and everything, but still more and more we run ACs, more and more we need ACs. There's a cyclical process. There's a vicious cycle. So let's move further. Then you also can run public awareness campaigns. Subsidy can be offered to agri implements and center can procure. In fact, agri implements and mechanical tools which are needed to till the soil. There, government can provide subsidy. Crop diversification can be sought for because if you are having different crops, those alternative crops apart from rice, paddy or wheat basically, so that will leave lesser crop residue and it will have a lesser burden on the farmer as well because the farmer has to take it upon himself or herself that she or he they have to manage that stubble and because of that reason stubble burning is an easy way out उस easy way out से better way outs आपको create करके farmer को देने पड़ेंगे तब जाकर बात बनेगी alright चलिए further you can use Pusa decomposer, which is basically a microbial consortium of fungal species, both in liquid or in capsule form, that has been developed by ICAR. It has been found very effective for rapid in situ decomposition of paddy straw. So, आप basically again industria academia linkage. Industry here being the agriculture sector, right? Then composers they are in form of capsules. Here there also is a highlighting of one particular fact, and that fact is that we do lack in extension services, where you have land grant universities in United States, where you have, I think it's called Woor listing, Suresh. These are basically different names being given to extension services. Extension services are basically services being offered by the state through universities or through academia to agriculture and agriculture related rural sector. Not just about agriculture, it's also about agriculture allied activity. तो allied activity तक भी ये पहुंच जाता है. अच्छा, this concept is very weak in India. If it was strong enough, then ICAR's developed Kusa decomposer would have reached the common farmer to a much greater extent. This is a problem. Now, this particular liquid, or maybe in the capsule format that it exists, it is basically making of a liquid formulation using decomposer capsules, fermenting it over 8 to 10 days, spraying the mixture on the crops, or rather crop residue, and ensuring biodecomposition of stubble. Very soon you will have clear field with more nutrient compared to stubble burning. Takes around 20 days for degradation process to complete. Quite quick, but not as quick as using it for commercial purposes. तो वो दोनों alternatives available होने चाहिए. Further, you can manage the residue. Now, Center has introduced the CRM scheme, crop residue management scheme. This is basically the financial assistance at 50% provided to the farmers for purchase of CRM machinery. अगर आप मशीनें लेते हैं, आपको 50% assistance दी जाएगी, and 80% to cooperative societies, FPOs. So this is a two-pronged approach where you are also promoting, farmer producer organizations. You are also promoting, cooperative societies in agriculture sector, basically social farming as a concept or cooperative farming as a concept. And also you are ensuring that stubble burning minimizes. The scheme also promotes usage of machines, and machines like super straw management system, then happy seeder, super seeder, smart seeder. These are all machines which help you clear the fields. Zero till seed cum fertilizer, drill machines, mulcher, paddy straw chopper, hydraulically reversible moldboard plow. Then moldboard plow is basically much more, uh, you know, much more, I would say, agile as compared to the traditional plow boards. I have I've taught agriculture to many individuals, and I've been a major resource for teaching agriculture and agriculture optional. For that reason, I know this as machinery. इसका diagram भी मुझे याद आ रहा है, but I don't want to confuse you all. So let's keep it at that. So there are about 6 components in moldboard plow, and it can be mechanically driven and can also be electrically, or rather machine. Crop reapers, reaper binders, all these machineries, they can be offered to the farmer at subsidized rates. तो अगर कोऑपरेटिव सोसाइटी है तो 80% सब्सिडी मिल जाएगी, अगर फार्मर इंडिविजुअल है तो 50% सब्सिडी मिल जाएगी. So you should strengthen these policies. Of course, a series of short-term ex situ and in situ solutions, they have been rolled out by the ministries and governments at state level and central level. They need to focus on the implementation component. Economic incentives to reduce burning, they have been tested and they have limited success. Crores of rupees have been invested in these solutions over the past 5 years. Nothing is as lucrative as burning. Driven largely by short-term thinking, techno fixes, alternative uses, these policies will only work at margins without addressing the root cause. The entire value chain of agriculture needs overhaul. Every single aspect of crop duopoly, every activity associated with crop duopoly, sorry, not duopoly, needs to be targeted. Making it more sustainable is or should be the agenda. All right, guys, I hope I'm audible to all. Couple of seconds, let me confirm. Wonderful. So why I'm a bit more frustrated today, but I certainly had shaved for this particular class, and I don't know what is the reason. थकली ऐसी है चलो कर ले है ना चलिए now I hope you've understood the basic premise of the idea that we have discussed up till this point and the science के concepts agriculture से related concepts policy से related concepts वो सारी चीजें यहाँ पर cover होती हैं right. Now, one thing we have understood what should be the policy. Second thing we have understood how you can create alternative means, but the problem is with respect to making it more lucrative as compared to burning the entire stubble. That is a major concern, है ना? Now, before moving ahead, let me share a very important information to all of you guys. Remember one thing, and that is that we are running very important courses for you all, including the foundation batch of 2024, where we are covering prelims, mains, interviews, every single aspect of the syllabus in the right manner, integrated approach, answer writing, every single thing has been covered. Make sure that you follow this particular course as well. Make sure every single mentor and educator that Sriram IAS has brought for you all on Unacademy platform should follow that. All right. Follow every mentor on Unacademy platform. Also, make sure that you remember the phone number that is 8585858585. So 5 times 85. Okay. So the course is live and running. Make sure that you are a part of it. Apart from that, there are multiple optional subjects that are being offered: sociology, public administration, I take, then PSIR, economics, history, and of course, not just that, you also have anthropology optional now being offered, as well as, of course, beyond the foundation batch, you also have geography optional. All you have to do if you are wanting to avail any of this course, any of these courses, then you should use this referral code of SRIRAMS, that is Sriram's. If you use this referral code, then you can get an instant 25% flat 25% discount on all UPSC CSE subscriptions that Sriram's IS is bringing to you guys on an academy platform. All right, guys, chaliye, let's move back to our concept. So we've basically understood what we need to cover with respect to the entire topic of stubble burning, how you can ensure effective management and integration of various policies. We are now going to move towards the next topic, renewable energy revolution, which is rooted in agriculture. So starting from the primary sector of the economy, how can you ensure renewable energy revolution? Now, for example, very recently, India has set up the first bioenergy plant ever. It has been set up by the private company in Sangrur district of Punjab. District Sangrur, a very famous district, a very vibrant and colorful people come from Sangrur. I don't know many of you guys, you know the regions of Punjab. If you know, tell me what region does Sangrur district fall in? Doab region, is it Malwa region, or is it Majha region? I'm using double J for all those who don't know Punjabi because it is Majha, right? And I had written Majha, people would have read it wrongly. All right. थोड़ा सा ज पे फोकस कर वाब मालवा एंड माजा नाउ टेल मी इन दी चैट सेक्शन और इन दी कमेंट सेक्शन अगर आप क्लास रिकॉर्डेड देख रहे हैं तो सर्टनली है ना चलिए so what is bioenergy basically a renewable energy that has been made available from organic materials derived biological sources से अगर निकाल रहे हैं उसे तो वो बायो एनर्जी हो जाएगी सिंपल राइट and it has been derived from bagasse from cotton stalk cotton coconut shell wood plants etc all the organic material. Now, one example is the CBG, that is compressed biogas. Now, compressed biogas is used naturally through the process of anaerobic decomposition of all the waste material that you can find from agriculture residue, cow dung, cattle dung, municipal solid waste, sugarcane press mud, which is basically released after the sugarcane is pressed. The mud, not the bagasse. Then sewage treatment plant waste, STP waste, which have been coming from effluent treatment plants, they can be utilized. Now, it is called compressed biogas. After basically you have biogas, you have purified it, you have compressed it, and now you have over 95% no voice. No voice. I audible now. Everything is fine at my end. Any sort of interconnection. Please refresh. I don't know why is she calling me ma'am, but world of gender neutrality, I appreciate it. Is a sir, not sir. Oh, am I audible now? Am I audible now, Anuradha ji? I was always hoping some viral moment would happen with me on in live class, and this is the most viral moment that has happened with me. So I thank you for that, making it maybe viral and such a. I hope I'm audible right now. I've been told that I am audible, let me proceed further. That's a wonderful thing now. So welcome to the class, everybody. And we have been talking about multiple topics. In fact, I have given questions after every single topic. Gagan, if you are in the class, Romeo ji, if you are in the class, then you would know this. है ना? Now, I have talked about stubble burning. I have talked about eco-sensitive zones. I have given you questions with respect to these topics. Also, now we are picking up the topic of compressed biogas and bioenergy, particularly as a source of renewable energy, bringing revolution rooted in agriculture. Now, because you talk about agriculture, that certainly means that the raw material or the resource material that should be coming up, it should be coming up from agriculture. So basically, compressed biogas is one example where you can take up this particular initiative. I hope I'm audible now, sirs and ma'ams. I hope it is audible to everyone. This now, compressed biogas is nothing but a concentrated form of methane. 95% के आसपास की concentration रहती है. मीथेन का chemical formula is CH4. It is met or methane. That is why ane means carbon is having single bonds. This is the structure, a very simplistic structure. Accurate structure ऐसा generally नहीं होता, थोड़ा सा distorted होता है. But generally what has been perceived is that when carbon is connecting or rather assigning its electrons with hydrogen, ये एक shared covalent bond होता है. So this covalent bond, it is more linear in its connections as compared to other types of bonds which also have, because this is hydrogen, this is hydrogen, this is hydrogen, this is hydrogen. You had any other material, for example, you had CH3Cl, meth chloride basically is not accurate, but the closest name that you can have, for example. तो ये एक हाइड्रोजन को हटाकर आपने एक क्लोराइड आयन लगा दिया, तो उस वजह से भी the distortion of the structure happens. Just to give you a very simple reason for all the activities that happen, including hydrogen bonding. These are simplistic steps and simplistic ideas that you should know. There was one mock interview that I was listening to, and very funny and yet very relevant question was asked. पानी गीला क्यों होता है? Why is water wet? You might think it to be a very, very funny or maybe to a certain extent stupid question, but it is highly scientific. पानी गीला क्यों होता है? Why is water wet? If you know the answer, mention it in the chat section or in the comment section if you're watching it in a recorded format. मेरे को आंसर मालूम है, आप जब कमेंट सेक्शन में बताएंगे then I would share the answer with you guys. All smiles. चलें आगे. Let's talk about compressed biogas. Methane 95% because it is biogas in the purified and in the compressed form. When you compress the gas, it basically converts itself into a more liquid form. So वो compression की वजह से liquid form में हो जाता है and it is easier for it to be stored. When you release the cylinder's pressure, this liquid again gets converted into gas form and it can be utilized. So this is how your LPG, liquefied petroleum gas, basically works when it reaches your household. Now, it may be in cylinders or it may be in the pipelines. Pressurized form में होता है तो liquid form में convert हो जाता है, easier to store. अच्छा, calorific value and other properties, they are quite similar to CNG. That means it is more cleaner as a fuel. Why do we need compressed biogas? Because Punjab, Haryana, Western UP, you have problems with respect to dispose of paddy stubble. You can use it as biomass and convert it into biogas. It has caused, this stubble burning has caused problems. So I'm not going into the details. I've already covered this. Air quality index is deteriorated, poor category में रहती है, and data from October 2022 CPCB. Basically, this is something that was available, so I've shared. Now, recently, Delhi government has started spraying Pusa biodecomposer solution as well, paddy fields in city and to reduce stubble burning. The Commission for Air Quality Management and in NCR and adjoining areas, AQM, has recently announced an immediate ban on all construction demolition activity. Why? Because you have particulate matter 2.5, PM10. These are two major components of air pollution. These are particulate matters which stay suspended. Now, if it is a lighter particulate matter, it will stay suspended for very long time. Particulate matter 10, PM10, stays suspended for lesser amount of time. इसका conglomeration होता है, ये settle down हो जाता है, and that is why every single time I take my car outside in Delhi, it gets all rusty, it gets all dirtied up because of the particulate matter. छोटे छोटे कण हैं air के अंदर, and that is why you have to keep cleaning your eyes, your pores, your skin, and of course your nose. You have to blow your nose and clean it every single time that you are moving through a field of air or a patch of air which is high in particulate matter. All right. So this is certain activities that you can. And if you have a task of speaking a lot, for example, teachers, they have to keep using something like toffee, like stuff which cleans their throat, because it will also impact negatively, it will impact the throat and throat related activity. Some of the measures that the government of India has taken, apart from what NCT Delhi government has taken, it has put in place several measures, spent a lot of money to tackle with this problem. One is the in situ management that we have already discussed. In fact, there is a crop residue management scheme which we have already discussed, which is being run by Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. And there is also ex situ management where you can use this paddy straw for biomass power projects, co-firing in thermal power plants. I have given you the same example only recently. अभी थोड़ी देर पहले यही same example मैंने आपको दिया था. इसको energy creation and energy conservation projects and sustainable energy and renewable energy projects के अंदर utilize किया जा सकता है. Additionally, certain measures they are in place to ban stubble burning that we have already seen. Ex situ uses are multiple. There can be workable solutions that we are looking for. In fact, Niti Aayog has also approached FAO, Food Agriculture Organization India, the India chapter basically, in 2019 to explore converting this paddy straw and stubble into energy, identifying various possible ex situ usages that you can have for the straw. The result has suggested that we can mobilize up to 30% of the rice straw which has been produced in Punjab. An investment of 2000 odd crore rupees would be needed to collect, transport, and store it within a 20-day period. Then you can reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 9.7 million tons carbon dioxide equivalent. This figure, if you can remember, बहुत मजा आ जाएगा. If you can remember this figure, if you can remember this paragraph, because anything and everything associated with Niti Aayog is basically a fodder or something which is which has utility for your introduction. Introduction, body, conclusion, IBC. याद है ना? आंसर कैसे लिखते हैं? I hope you know this, है ना? Everything and anything associated with Niti Aayog is related to your fodder for mains examination, for your introduction particularly, and of course conclusion. Remember my first session, I had told you that introduction is open-ended internally, and conclusion is again like this. This is introduction, this is conclusion. They both have to be written in a similar fashion. बस फर्क सिर्फ इतना है कि वो अंतर्मुखी होते हैं दोनों तरफ से. So they are completing the package of your answer. So when you feel like when you're writing the main body and you feel like that there's no culmination point that how to stop, then you move towards conclusion and then you write it in certain manner that it helps you compile the answer. So therefore ऐसे करके आंसर लिखना शुरू कर दीजिए. Easy tips and tricks. They can be converted. These stubble, this paddy straw, can be actually converted into pellets, and these pellets can have cost-effective impact for producing CBG and pellets. Pellets can be used in multiple areas, particularly thermal power plants, where they can be a substitute for coal. Pallets ka creation will also create a separate industry where pallet creation will be a major activity. Now, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change had announced 50 crore rupees scheme to incentivize industrialists, entrepreneurs to set up paddy straw palletization plants, torrefaction plants. What is a pallet? Pallet ऐसा होता है छोटा सा. It's like a capsule that you think, but capsule से ना थोड़ा सा rounded shape में होता है. Shape में. I've basically magnified it to about four, 4 to 5 times the size. So it is maybe about a 5 millimeter of length and breadth, maybe. छोटे size का होता है. I don't know how many of you guys have had done the ability to or capabilities, possibilities of conducting certain experiments. I, for one, had the opportunity to do that. In fact, in our laboratories, we used to make in in our polymer sciences laboratory, we used to make bottle caps. We used to compress mold this bottle cap and then create it. We used to create plates. We used to create a lot of things. I know how this palette is formed. Basically, you add some binding material to it and then you keep compressing it. This industry has been ensured a scheme of 50 crore rupees to incentivize this particular program, and using this as a resource for coal fired thermal power plants. तो कोल का एक बेटर और चीपर ऑल्टरनेटिव निकल कर आ सकता है, सो यू कैन रिड्यूस द डिपेंडेंस ऑन कोल. तो कोल का इंपोर्ट भी मिनिमाइज हो सकता है. दिस हैज ह्यूज सिग्निफिकेंसेस and I've been talking about it for a while now within this class and before this class as well. So this will save coal as well as reduce carbon emissions, will have positive impact through and through. Various schemes include Satat Prayas or Satat scheme. Satat is sustainable alternative towards affordable transportation. With 30% of the straw being produced in Punjab, 5% of compressed biogas production target that has been set out by the scheme will have a positive impact on the scheme or targets of the scheme, and they can be met. Four objectives are there for the scheme. Number one, utilizing more than 62 million metric tons of waste that is being generated. So from waste to energy. Cutting down import dependence, supplementing job creation in the country, reducing vehicular emission, pollution from burning agricultural organic waste, etc. All of this. Further, from stubble, paddy stubble, carbon, your compressed biogas that has been created, it is valued at 46 rupees per kg as per the Satat scheme. Now, paddy straw from 1 acre of crop can yield energy output of around 17,000 rupees, which means an addition of more than 30% to the main output of the grain. This will increase the wealth of the farmers from the waste that is being generated. तो ये एक positive impact हो जाए, making it a more circular economy for India. So also zero effect, zero defect schemes, for example, on those similar lines, including circular economy concept, including zero waste policy, and of course, policies related to sustainability. Now, before we go on and discuss the way forward, let me give you a question. Finding the space to write down the question. यहाँ पर लिखते हैं. So, question for this topic. Again, 200 words. Huh? Sir, so 200 words question. Question goes like this. Let me frame it. Should be discuss policy. Words, wealth from India. Question mark. Next question is, this is one question, giving you another question. Alternatives of double burning. Help achieve of doubling farmers' income. Albeit a bit late. तरीके से question ला सकते हैं. So make sure that you keep writing down the answers to such questions. Now we move towards rainwater harvesting. Now, rainwater harvesting is one thing that I am reminded of a project that I had picked up when I was probably in my in standard, if I'm not wrong. And that project was of a working model of rooftop rainwater harvesting. And the process was quite stunning. And I was so impressed by that agenda, by that fact that I used to find it quite disturbing that why is it not being implemented throughout the urban areas? I've been talking about this fact for a while now in this class that urban areas are not resource areas. These are basically sink areas where you are supplying resource material and it's not giving you results as such. It's being basic process in urban areas has been to utilize the production of various sectors, the primary, the secondary, and the tertiary sectors. Production as such of major resources, particularly in the primary sector and the secondary sector, it happens in the agriculture sector, it happens in the rural areas, it happens in those areas where you do not see the benefits of development. So, rainwater harvesting can be one way of basically the urban areas being able to undo what they have done to the environment. In a report of 2018, Niti Aayog had said that India's water demand will exceed water supply by a factor of 2 by 2030. That means that if you need 1 liter of water, you would only have half. This is the factor of 2. This is what it means. India covers around 2.45 of the world's surface area. 4% of the world's water resources are with India. 4% means a lot. India has rainfall as a primary source of fresh water because precipitation, not just rainfall, precipitation when it happens in higher areas, higher altitudes, it leads to replenishing of glaciers and what freshwater resources when it comes to rivers, rivulets, streams, ponds, lakes, etc. And for a country of this size, India receives second most amount of rainfall in the world. We have the highest rainfall receiving place on the planet. We have the wettest planet, or rather the wettest place on the planet. India receives an average of around 1.17 meters of rainfall. 46 इंचेस के आसपास की रेनफॉल होती है हर साल अभी इस साल की बात करें तो the way that it is pouring right now outside, I really wish I had a window apart from the doors that I have in this studio. I could have told you how beautiful the environment is outside, how beautiful and stunning it is looking, the greenery and everything. But yes, we receive 4,000 cubic kilometers around का आसपास rainfall is 960 cubic miles as far as the volume is concerned, or about 1720 cubic meters or 61,000 cubic feet of fresh water per person. Per person. So this is per capita rainwater budget of individuals. This data is very, 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 very important. 5 star and cap rating, or rather SCAP rating, another rating. है ना? Now about rainwater harvesting, if I were to talk about, basically it's a simplistic process of collection, storage, and utilization of rainwater as through artificially designed systems. If you talk about naturally designed systems, वो तो फिर ग्राउंड वाटर replenishment में चला जाएगा. रेन वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग to have multiple components. For example, the catchment area, the area where you collect and then you will be able to store the captured rainwater. Then you will have the conveyance system, which will be used to transport the harvested water from the catchment area to the recharge zone, which will be like a storage zone, which will be like your, for example, if I were to give you an analogy, in agriculture sector you have cold storages, वैसे ही you will have conveyance system where the harvested rainwater will be taken to the recharge zone. Further, flush basically is used, flush to flush out the first spell of rain. First spell of rain is not very clean as water, not very clean, right? Guys, just give me a couple of seconds, couple of just a couple of seconds. चलिए, all right. Now, see, we have been discussing various aspects. Now, if you would notice, various aspects of the environment, various aspects of ecology, the way we have started off this entire session from eco-sensitive towards We've talked about the CBG, the concept of stubble burning, compressed biogas, every single thing. We are talking about sustainability. Remember to write down when you're writing down answers. Remember to make sure that you're using a particular theme when you're writing down answers to such questions. एक process, एक theme use कीजिएगा to utilize certain form of coherence. Because when you talk about the entire topic of GS3, the entire subject of GS3, set of subjects. You talk about economy, you talk about environment, you talk about border security, you talk about various other issues with respect to, say, for example, disaster management, etc., etc., etc. The underlying theme should be socialism or sociology, particular, or also the socio-political rights and political impact of various policies. थोड़ा एक broad perspective लेकर चलिएगा, writing down answers to such questions, particular. You can write down your answers. You can discuss your answers when uh, we are conducting live sessions on Unacademy platform. I would recommend that if you find any ways in that, then you should certainly. All right. So please make sure that you follow every single member of faculty that Sriram IAS brings for us all on Unacademy platform at various methodologies, various ways, including the UPSC Articulate channel that Unacademy has, and including, of course, the Unacademy platform itself. Right? Correct. Now let's move further. So we were talking about various aspects and various components of rainwater, the catchment area, the conveyance system, the recharge zone, the flush that we have to do, particularly when it comes to the first rainfall, the first spell of rain that you have to use as to wash out or to flush out. Then you have the filtering system to filter the collected rainwater, removing all the pollutants. Now, one way is to just remove the particulate matter dissolved or the dissolved matter, dissolved solids. Technical term is TDS, not the tax deduction at source, but total dissolved solids. This is used in environmental sciences to measure BOD, COD, etc. Biological or biochemical oxygen bond and chemical oxygen, right? Now, there have been multiple traditional methodologies that have been utilized by Indians since ancient times, which are a part and parcel of technologies that can be incorporated in modern days as well when it comes to rainwater harvesting. Number one is cool. So, cool basically or cools is long distances के ऊपर you have somewhere around 10 kilometer long. Pools have been around there for centuries. They have been present in areas like Jammu, Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh. They are used as sources of water, of fresh water by various communities, tribal people, and other individuals for agriculture and other activities. They have been source of fresh water for many individuals where access to fresh water is quite limited and is sometimes also discernible. Then you have the Tanka system of Rajasthan, basically a cylindrical pit which is created where rainwater is received and is basically recharging some area which is near the catchment area itself. Then you have the Virdas. So Virdas are very shallow wells dug in low depressions. So झील बोल देते हैं या tankages बोल देते हैं tanks बोल देते हैं. Generally seen in Run of Kutch area of Gujarat. Then you have Madakas or Madak. This is a unique structure constructed on upper reaches of undulating topographies, थोड़ा higher areas में. Then you have Hadan. Hadan is basically an earthen. Had basically relates to earth term, and it's a very long 100 to 300-meter earthen embankment across some lower hill slope where you are collecting water. Then bamboo drip irrigation, which is basically used in northeast areas. वो bamboo को slit करके water collection करते हैं. Then कर्नाटका के रीजन में टैंक्स हैं, then zinc tanks which are used in Ladakh, basically water created from melted ice. Step well system of Rajasthan, Gujarat region. Pauris or bears, basically, which are community wells of Rajasthan. Apatanis, which are terraced plots, which are connected by inlet and outlet channels. These are existing in Arunachal Pradesh, northeastern part. Then Painehar, which is related to South Bihar. You should remember all these examples. You can use these examples in your answers. It will really help you all. All right. Declining groundwater is also a major concern. In fact, the World Water Development Report of 2015 that was released by UNESCO, it says that India is the front runner in groundwater extraction around the world. The water table is going down and there is a decline in the availability of water resources because of overexploitation, mismanagement, climate change. Because of these three major reasons, several metropolitan cities, they are already facing difficulties. Delhi, for example, if I were to tell you, to have water supply for, through a fresh water supply is available only only for about 1.5 hours or 2 hours for the entire day. One in the morning, one in the evening only. Major societies, major areas. In several metropolitan cities, they are already facing this difficulty. And I'm giving you the example of Delhi. For example, water supply of approximately 930 million gallons a day, MGD, is the demand. Sorry, is the supply. Demand is 1380 MGD. That gives you the difference. Now, Delhi Jal Board has planned to meet this growing demand through groundwater resources. This will also lead to overexploitation, and rainwater harvesting can be a very good and much better alternative as such. So you can recharge and reuse through grey water management processes. You can call it grey water management, water conservation, water harvesting. You can use these processes. So a campaign to catch the rain where it falls, when it falls, can be run. Was run very recently to create appropriate rainwater harvesting structures. It can be used in various urban areas, not just in Delhi. Atal Bhujal scheme to replenish reservoirs, creating artificial reservoirs, 75 major reservoirs in 75 major districts, and then moving it towards pan India and rainwater harvesting. Just like we had the Swachh Bharat mission, just like we created an entire awareness program for cleanliness drives, for open defecation free country, just like that, we should have rainwater harvesting initiatives being taken up. We need to ensure food security, and for that, you need resource of water. Modern hybrid crops, fertilizers can be used, which depend on continuous supply of irrigation water. That is a major cause of concern, which basically increases or enhances the utility or utilization of water as a resource. So what you can do is you can use those crops, or you can go for those crops which are for drier regions. This is in fact an adaptation and mitigation strategy for the future as well, for the sustainable future of agriculture in this country. More than 60% of the net sown area in India is basically rain fed, and this still exists as a matter of fact. Micro irrigation projects are not to be seen anywhere in this particular set of areas. More than three-fourths of the precipitation that exists in India happens generally during the 4 months of monsoon season. And what are these 4 months? Mention them in that section or in the comment section. I would tell you that if you are right or wrong. Rapid urbanization happens, industrial development demands also increase. When you go for developmental activities, they increase the pressure on water resources. Severe water crunch is going to happen because of that, and it can be addressed through rainwater harvesting. Very beautiful and a very vibrant way of saving water. It changes the perceptions and the way the entire economy, and not just economy, the communities behave. the society behaves in a different manner. And that is where rainwater harvesting is not just about maintaining and managing the water budget, it is what it has as an impact on the ways the society. If the society becomes conservationist, then the problem with respect to climate change will be easier to tackle. तो जब भी आप इस तरीके से बहुत ही सिंपलिस्टिक टॉपिक का कंक्लूजन लिख रहे हो तो उसको थोड़ा सा ऑप्टिमिस्टिक तरीके से नॉट इन अ पेसिमिस्टिक मैनर इन एन ऑप्टिमिस्टिक मैनर should leave some food for thought for the society at large or maybe the examiner so that the examiner realizes that you have much deeper thought process as compared to what you have already written. ठीक है तो जहां पर आपको लगता है कि एक लिमिटेड स्कोप हो गया है वहां पर एक ओपन एंडेड फूड फॉर थॉट छोड़कर जाइएगा अपने कंक्लूजन के अंदर विच मे बी when we read as teachers many a times we have seen that only few students do that and these are like breadcrumbs for teachers which acts like a source for good marks. In dry areas, in hilly areas, women they face hardship because they have to fetch water from long distances. And in such remote areas, rainwater harvesting can provide a decentralized source of water, and it will also reduce hardships and also problems with respect to the society. So you can always enhance water security, always have rejuvenation and charge of natural resources as can create and construct water bodies using rainwater, and of course can have increased use of treated wastewater to local sewage treatment plants. You can reuse in the industry. You can reduce the burden on the already existing sources. Well designed rainwater harvesting systems across residential and commercial areas, not just commercial areas, but particularly in the residential areas where cleaning, washing, etc. as processes should utilize this recharged groundwater from rainwater. Or you can have separate tankages which are catering to recharge of rainwater that has been harvested through the catchment area. These efforts they may must be facilitated with cooperation of central state governments. तो इसमें फेडरलिज्म का जो जिसको कहते हैं ना टसल वो नहीं होना चाहिए. As far as tussle is concerned, I've talked about the Lieutenant Governor and the NCT government of NCT of Delhi tussle that has happened in the recent past on the Unacademy UPSC Articulate channel. I've delivered a couple of other sessions, including social capital. How is it acting as a new currency for good governance? And how, what is the impact of new public administration? What is the impact of organic farming? What are the policies in various other aspects, including the, the role and responsibility of RBI as government's bank? Every single of these sessions are relevant for you guys. I've discussed a number of topics. Make sure that you are following them. Let's proceed further. तो बेसिक एस्पेक्ट्स हैं हम keywords पे focus करेंगे because we have to write down answers in point form. There's a need for stringent policy initiative, particularly for long-term aspects, because most of the times the perception of the people is that rainwater harvesting is a short-term phenomenon. तो इस एजेंडा को तोड़ के एक लॉन्ग टर्म सस्टेनेबल सॉल्यूशन निकाल कर लाना है. Integrated water management plans should be created. They should be brought up, particularly at local levels, and they should be implemented. There is a need of the hour to promote rainwater harvesting that we already know, create more viable, safe, ecologically safe, traditional, cost-effective systems. Modern rainwater harvesting technologies like percolation tanks, injection wells, and then you have subsurface barriers to rejuvenate the depleted water resources can also be used. You can also have, the traditional methods and the modern methods combined together. So you can juxtapose when it comes to the efforts. Also, should productively combine these structures. That can be an answer to the never-ending woes that India is facing towards water crisis. Coming to a more, say, economy related and governance related problem of India, and that is with respect to pluralism. Now, pluralism, I've called it a problem in a very critical sense. I've basically criticizing the concept of pluralism. And guys, if time is up, then we will continue this in the next class. But abhi filhal, just keep listening. Huh? थोड़ा थोड़ा सुनते रहिए. India is a very diverse country. The society in India is very diverse. The languages, the regions, the cuisines, the culture, the practices, the rituals, quite diverse. And it creates diverse identities. When I see this word identities, I'm reminded of a sermon that J.J. Krishnamurti was given. I quoting this whenever I take up ethics as a concept. This individual is has had a huge significance on the thought process that I have towards spirituality and को आप हिंदी में अध्यात्म कहते हैं. And J.J. Krishnamurti basically strips off every single aspect of human mind or the existence as is perceived by human mind. And then what are, we are nothing, is we are nothing. And that frightens us. And trying to mimic his voice, wonderful individual closes his eyes and keeps speaking just like this. We are nothing. And he's not giving expressions. He is still feels like he's connected with his self to that extent, you know. And the way he has defined identities, something which is relevant when it comes to political science, when it comes to economy, when it comes to public policy, particularly the fact that we assign ourselves certain identities to make sure that we are not frightened of the nothingness that we actually are. If you notice, every single thing that you are, that you think you are, is basically a perception of you that has been created by your mind. And India and pluralism as direct significance to ethics and towards economy, GS3, towards essays, towards GS2 as well. India is a diverse society. Pluralism is quite crucial for its functioning. What is pluralism? Pluralism is basically the understanding of a diverse society. It can be a nation's cultural, political, philosophical posture where you have many individuals or many groups of individuals that may have contradictory or competing position against each other that cannot be seamlessly condensed into a single institutional system. Why? Because every individual and every like individual, they have created a set of identities around them. Quoting J.J. Krishnamurti here, those identities they tend to coalesce, and these coalesced identities they compete and contradict with other identities. They compete with other identities with respect to the rights that are ensured by the state. They are also competing for the resources because one community or one set of group of individuals in the plural society, they want a certain type of utilization of certain resource, and the other wants in the utilization in a different manner. So process of utility or process of utilization of resources, उसके ऊपर भी differentiation होने की वजह से pluralism के अंदर एक stark distinction आ जाता है. That distinction is basically based on the plural existence of ideas, of thoughts, of identities, of interests in the society. Now, we have intense pride for various temples, we have different faiths, we have different languages, we have different religions, we have different political ideologies, we have different types of rulers who have ruled in parts of the country. India's democracy is unique and is a multi political party system because of the pluralist society that we have because of this reason. Today, Indian life with many identities, such as you can be called a Kannadiga or Punjabi, a Goan, a Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Sikh, or a Bengali, based on the languages that you speak, based on the dialects that you speak, not just the language, the dialect and the region that you speak it from, and so on and so forth. So these are all different identities within the homogeneous structure that we are living in. This homogeneous structure, it's like I'm going to quote here Neil deGrasse Tyson. I hope the name spellings are correct. Now, Neil deGrasse Tyson, very famous scientist and astrophysicist. This guy keeps on explaining the universe to the world. Says that if you are a very big giant and the earth for you is a tiny ball, like a Costco ball, and on this ball, if you use your finger and you move your finger like this, the surface would be as smooth as any, just like you're moving your hand on the glass. Because at that level or at that stage, every single thing seems to fit in place and it seems like very smooth. This is just the way if you are looking at a macroscopic scale, Indian society might be very homogeneous. But in fact, it is not. It is structured, it has various identities that every single individual caters to and has associated oneself. Those identities, they create a certain type of interests because it is controlling and regulating the way the people are functioning. So in many ways, plurality exists by way of coexistence and not by confrontation. It is because of us coexisting together that we have plurality. India has always had a very strong and rich pluralistic history. One of the most glorious aspects of India's pluralist culture is, of course, the treatment that her states and people have given to religious and minority groups that came to India as refugees. Persecuted people by their own countries, destruction of their sacred places, and their sacred beings, their fellow beings being massacred. The Jews, the Zoroastrians, the Tibetans all have found refuge in India or India's homogeneous existence. Our age old traditions of tolerance, of hospitality, they have had high hopes and aspirations fulfilled for all these individuals who have come in. Strong, rigid, exclusive aspects of unending resources or sources of intercultural conflict. Rigid cultures have behaved like billiard balls and as they meet to collide only. And that is where the problem of India's pluralistic existence comes into picture. The resilience and adaptability that is nurtured by pluralism in India is unique and far from being emulated anywhere else. To give you an example, what is happening in France, in Denmark, in Sweden, in various countries right now, it tells you the kind of pseudo pluralistic culture that these countries promote, or the way they have been talking about India's political freedoms to various religious groups or linguistic groups or other kinds of groups. They have been criticizing India, and this is probably one time period that they're going through where they are the weakest in their own parameter that they had created to particularly undermine the existence of a vibrant society, particularly in those colonial parts of the world where they have moved out from. यूनिकनेस की अगर मैं बात करूं इंडिया के pluralistic culture की has accumulated a lot of material objects, ideas, symbols, belief systems, sentiments, values, social forms even through and through generation that it has passed from one to another. History of India's culture goes back more than 5,000 years. And in fact, not just 5,000 years, in certain sections of society, it is believed that it is somewhere around 17,000 years as well. In certain sections, that some would disagree. Some would say that it is not even 5,000, it's about 75 or so. है ना? So basically, there will be changes in the approach. Why? Because we are a pluralistic society. So differences in opinions will always there. Good governance has always been considered a very strong and a necessary prerequisite for the happiness of the people. So the rulers, they bestow happiness and prosperity on the people. They always tread the path of righteousness in the governing state. So not always, of course, not always, but yes, they would always want to, or we would always want them, right? Could you give me just a couple of seconds, please? को लगता है गला सबका सूखता है करके आगे यूपीएससी यूपीएससी agricultural society. Again, we have, in fact, we are probably the only society on the face of this planet that has, for the satisfaction of all, Panch Mahabhutas, the Prithvi, which is the earth, the Akash, the sky, Jal, water, Vayu, air, Agni, fire, all are pacified and all are revered. We are, as a society, focusing on all five aspects: Prithvi, Agni, Jal, Akash, Vayu. Every single aspect of existence, human existence, is revered. We focus on ahimsa, then we also focus on freedom struggle. So ahimsa is balanced with fighting for the rights. Another perennial value that Indian culture has taught is universal brotherhood, or a global consciousness, which otherwise was very limited. If you talk about the American concept of global consciousness, quite ill conceived, it is America centric. Whereas our concept of universal brotherhood is not based on India centric approach, it's more about the global centric or more spiritual centric approach. The old concept of unity in diversity has been conserved over the years. Unlike many other post colonial societies, India chose to be a pluralistic constitution. When I say it is a pluralistic constitution, it means that the constitution ensures that this pluralism is maintained and managed to a much greater extent. It is basically perceived in a much deeper sense, not just the bloody partition that we have had in 1947 that defines us. It is, of course, the constitution and the people who have written down this constitution, even if we had some proposed or who followed the path of two. So it is a different constitution, and Constitution of India continues to endure as a standard public life. It is a torch, it is the source of light that every individual has to follow or is able to follow to create a much more organization for a more pluralistic society. Constitution offers you a source material, a resource in such cases. Now, guys, this topic of abortion would certainly take a lot of time. So I would not cover it in today's class. I would cover it in the next class. Let me give you a question right now with respect to India's plural society. This is related to GS1. Remember that? Not related to GS2, just related to GS1. So yaad rakhiye. Now the question would come to point that critically analyze तो आएगा। Diversity. Next question. Create a more deeper question. This is a very simple one. Critical analysis वाला simple है थोड़ा सा, but otherwise difficulty will come when it comes to your analysis. Well, identity, shaping the identity. Question mark. This can be one particular way of asking questions. Acha, as far as this topic is concerned, of abortion rights versus ethics. We will take it up in the next class. थोड़ा सा बड़ा टॉपिक है, इसमें थोड़ा डिटेल एस्पेक्ट्स कवर करने हैं, एथिक्स से रिलेटेड टॉपिक है. So we will discuss this in the next class. We will sit down on Sunday next week, same time, same place. Guys, we are having this mission 2020. Mission means 2023. Current affairs, answer writing for GS1, 2, 3, every single aspect of the exam being covered by Sriram's IAS on Unacademy platform. Now, I would recommend every single individual to do one thing, that is and stay tuned to Sriram's IAS, because if you do that, then you would have access to 25% discount. You would know that SRIRAMS, this referral code, is going to help you out. And you would also know the offerings of various optional courses, including geography, anthropology, foundation batches that we are running on an academy platform. Every single course of optional subjects in psychology, public administration, PSIR, economics, history, geography, anthropology, they are also now being offered. Every single course is going to be available for us all on an academy platform. Sure that you follow every single set of educator and mentor from Sriram's IS existing on an academy platform. Remember the phone number that I have mentioned. 8585858585. So 5 times 85. All right. Chalo. That is all for right now. Sit down again. Next week, Saturday ko Anshum sir will be there. Sunday ko I will be there, and we will be covering important and relevant current affairs for your mains preparation. Till then, keep calm.